This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hey, this week we have got an amazing episode pulled from the archives from way back at the beginning of Storyworks Roundtable. Catherine, Matt, and I bring Daria Brennan on to talk about book covers. Daria is my graphic designer. She's incredible. I just love working with her. And we get into what you need to do to make the best cover for your book and how to work with the designer. It's great hearing directly from Daria what this process is like, what it's like for her on her side of the table. And I know you're going to come away with a lot of insights about how to approach and communicate with your graphic designer. Enjoy. Hey, welcome to another Storyworks Roundtable. I'm Alita with Matt and Catherine, and today we've got a very special guest, Daria Brennan. Daria is a graphic and web designer who does book covers. I happen to know she's an awesome designer because she's my designer. She's done 4 covers and a logo for me. So Daria, welcome.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Thank you. And I see that in 2006 you got a degree in economics, but now you've come down a different road.
Yes, definitely. Even before I got my degree in economics, I knew it was just not for me. So decided to take another road, and I got a degree in web design and graphic design. Working first as a web design, and also decided I'm not finding myself very well in that career, which was actually going pretty well. And then I discovered book design, which was actually completely by accident, doing a favor for a person I knew, and it became passion.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is, and I'm glad it became your passion because that worked out really well for me. Okay, and you also have won some contests with your designs, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we met, actually, I believe.
Right. Yes, we met through 99 Designs because I actually ran a contest for my book cover, which you won, and we went from there. So this is the first cover you did for me.
Yes.
The Murder in Skog Hall.
So pretty.
Isn't it? And then we have Dark Corners in Skog Hall. I'm trying to make sure they're centered so they don't get cut off. And then we have A Stone's Throw.
That one's my favorite.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Mine, actually.
Yeah, isn't it awesome? And then you did my typewriter logo, and the 4th cover is in production, so that will be out.
Ooh, top secret.
This year.
I
know. Well, you guys know what it is. You've seen it. But yes, for all the audience, it's top secret. All right. So to begin with, why don't we chat about writers doing their own book covers? Good idea or bad idea? Who wants to weigh in first?
Yeah. Did you guys had any ideas of designing your own covers, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as people designing their own covers, I think there are some people who have the skills to do both. But I think in general, most writers don't, even if they think they do. I know myself well enough to know that I'm a terrible graphic designer, so I don't even try.
Me too.
Yes.
Okay, it's very fair to admit that, actually.
All right, so I actually designed my first book cover myself. Now, I had a boyfriend at the time who's a wonderful photographer and an expert in Photoshop, so I did have really good support. This is my first cover.
Okay.
It's not bad at all. It's a great contrast for example, typeface that you use I like, and a good contrast of a font and a background, which makes it really, really readable. It's just, I would change the alignment of the title, definitely a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, good.
But it's not bad at all.
And we have the ripples on the water from the stone's throw on the back. So this,
Nice.
so I had a concept in my head about what the book is about and what I wanted to kind of portray on the cover. And because I was working with what was available to me, this is a total confession. This was kind of a secret, but now it's not. This is me on a park bench in Loring Park. So if you know Minneapolis, that's Loring Park. And as I said, my boyfriend of the time is a photographer. So we went on a photo shoot and I tried to wear something I thought my character would wear. And that sweater is actually green, but green didn't work for the cover. So a little Photoshop, and my hair is not that dark. So again, Photoshop.
Right.
And I'm glad you don't hate the cover, Daria. I'm glad it got a not bad. Because when we did the German translation, my translators thought this would actually go over better in the German marketplace. So
that's interesting.
This is the current cover in Germany. And they did like an online reading group. And one of the comments was, who did her cover? It's so pretty. So, you have to know your marketplace as well as design and aesthetics and, your book's content. So, but do as I say, not as I do, right? And, obviously I did change the cover because although this is part of my journey as an author and I like it and I'm proud of it, it wasn't everything it could be. And I feel like this just takes the book's image up quite a few notches. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Do you guys want to comment on that? I'm totally open to you using me as an example.
The only thing is that strikes me is that the difference between markets, that the German translators thought that the photo would work better than the illustrated version. I never really think about that. So Daria, do you design with like the American market in mind, or do you pick, like, how do you do that?
Well, I definitely design mostly for American market. I did few book covers for Spanish market. It was completely different. I don't have them to show now, but the colors are very different. They have to pop up in almost awkward way, but it works kind of. It really works, but definitely different market. Your cover that I made for American market was definitely what I understood from your description. It was like combination art and almost like poetry, or that's what I understood, and that's what I tried to create on the cover. And I do really like that cover. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, me too. I think it's an awesome cover. And it was, one thing we can comment about doing your own cover is your resources aren't as great as a professional designer. Like, I did not access any stock imagery to do this. I didn't really know what was out there or how to pull it all together. And so this shows one of my characters in one of my settings, whereas here we've got the Minneapolis skyline and the London skyline and the two women. And it just really pulls together more of the thematic material of my book. And the coloring, the sort of watercolor painted feeling, all of that works beautifully with the book. And those are things I couldn't have accomplished because I don't have the know-how,
Yes. Well, sorry. One of the reasons actually why maybe authors wouldn't be able to design their own covers. Okay, you mentioned the lack of skills, which is of course important, but also to have a kind of a software to make it. If you don't have a Photoshop, okay, maybe try with a GIMP, which is free. But often, and the most important, by my opinion and experience, is that authors are not subjective when it gets to their book cover. So soul and heart is in the book, and they maybe have an idea they want to transfer on the cover, which might result by too crowded cover or not eye-catching cover, but the cover that they think it represents their book. So maybe that would be the biggest reason why maybe authors should stay away and observe how the cover is made objectively and comment it, and then bring their ideas in, and in cooperation with the designer actually make a perfect cover.
So when you're working with an author then, and they have their ideas that they bring to the table, how much of that do you take and how much of it do you just kind of, like, do you try to get everything that they want and then show them why it doesn't work? Or like, how much do you take and how much do you leave, kind of an idea?
Well, the thing is, actually, I take most of it. It's just the way I made the priorities. They think that everything is equally important, which is in their eyes, and in the reader's eyes, probably as a part of a story. But on a cover, it can't be all equally important. There is one main element, and everything is built around that element, which makes a point, which makes the cover stand out, because you don't have to read the story. That's the thing. So
you're kind of editing the story in the cover form, whereas like Alita would edit the story's content, you would edit it for visual content. That's kind of cool.
Very well said. Yes, exactly that.
Yeah. And authors always want like all the symbols in the book like represented in the cover, but that probably works against them because, like you said, it becomes too crowded because they try to put everything in there.
Exactly. There is maybe one or two, maybe three main characters in the book, and there is let's say, a river, which is also important in the book, which has a certain shape, and behind the river it's a tree with a certain shape, and it has to be on the cover as well. And behind all of that could be birds flying in certain shape. It's too much. It's just too much for the cover. So you have to decide what's the main theme of the cover and build around it slightly in the background, so the readers will get a feeling that actually is author trying to tell through the cover. But that general idea really works for the market purposes as well, which is very, very important after you finish a book, of course.
So what is your process for working with an author? Like if an author emails you and says, I want a book cover, kind of what are the steps you go through to go from first contact to finished book?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I ask for as much as details they can provide me. That could be a blurb or description of a book, or anything they think I should know about the book, some main part, something that would make me understand the feeling and the mood of the book. I usually ask the covers as well, links maybe to the covers that they like, which would represent also the similar mood that they want to show on their cover, or even book covers that they don't like. That's also a very good idea. After that, after I gather all the information I can get, I actually start working on the draft design. But actually, before that, I start looking for stock photos, imagery that I'm going to use on the cover, which is actually almost the longest process in the book cover design, just finding those right photos. And then making the draft design with those photos. And after that, actually, after I send the draft design to the author, the real work actually starts. Then we get a real discussion. Does he like this or not? Is it the correct, for example, if I use the colors to describe the mood, to communicate the mood of the book, is that correct color palette that I should be using, or should we switch to something else? So it's a process, but...
Have you ever had an author say, I want this, and you thought, that's so the wrong direction, that's just going to be terrible, and then have to kind of steer them away from their concept?
Actually, I didn't, because usually authors do lots of research before they contact me. I guess they check lots of cover designers online, they check their work, what's maybe currently on the market, maybe bestsellers, and they have pretty good ideas, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions about design process, or experiences you want to share?
Well, I noticed that all of Alita's covers have people in them. Is that common, or does it depend on the genre?
Well, in my experience, definitely depends of the author wishes, but I do believe actually in a certain genre, showcase of people is different. I don't know if you noticed that. For example, in a mystery, you would mostly see the silhouette of a person, not the faces, not the clothes. It's mostly silhouette to add the mystery feeling. In a romance, you will see more body parts to show, for example, the passion between the characters. So yeah, it is very common, and it definitely helps to describe the genre of the cover. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I heard once that having a person on the cover helps you sell more because the prospective buyer will identify with the person. Would you agree with that, Daria?
I would definitely. Mm-hmm. I have many authors that want, for example, a face on the cover, but then we have to carefully choose that face. Mainly, if our author likes that face, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. Because, as I said, mostly my authors are quite prepared when they come to me, and they almost know exactly what they want.
Mm.
Right. Yeah, you can get into trouble showing faces, though, if you do a series, because if you're using stock imagery, you don't know that you'll have enough images of the same model. So like this Jess and this Jess are different people, but we don't see their faces, so it works. Mm-hmm. You know, I know Brian Cohen on his Ted Saves the World series, he actually found a couple of models and hired them and did a photo shoot and just did lots of outfit changes, lots of poses, lots of shots of these two models in that one day, so they have the same faces, that, you know, they haven't like aged or cut their hair off or anything. So he would have lots of imagery of his own for his covers. You know, so if you aren't prepared to go find your own models and hire a photography studio, showing faces can get tricky.
Yeah, that's definitely a big project for indie authors, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
To hope future or something, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What other pitfalls do writers need to be aware of when thinking about cover design?
By themselves or when hiring a designer?
Just in general, like if you're conceiving what kind of cover you want for your book, is there anything to steer clear of, or, you know, any... Like faces. Faces would be a pitfall. You might really want to have your character's face on there, but then that can create problems later.
Yes, but it could be, since today one person usually has a stock photos of them pretty much the same model, so it is easily to find the same person. You just have to be prepared that is upfront that it's going to be a series. That's the main thing when you're planning something like that. So you can make also different kind of poses. For example, you will show a full face in one series, maybe the profile in a second one, and just play with the poses like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found when we were doing Murder in Skog Hall, I was looking at a lot of stock image sites, and there might be women who had the right hair or the right physique to be Jess, but they were like in a really flowy romantic gown or something, and it's like, no, you know. So there were things about them, not the background, that just wouldn't work on my cover, even if the face was perfect or the hair was perfect. So it was more challenging than I thought it would be to find, like, oh, there's my character.
Yeah, well, that's actually easily can be changed. You just need a hint of a stock photo that you can use on a book cover, and everything can be built around that: the hair, dress, everything. Photo manipulation is really great. Yeah.
See, this is why you need a professional designer.
Yeah.
Right.
She can do these things. Yeah.
I can imagine, like, to
Totally.
have the imagination to take 2 photos and be like, oh, no problem. Like, that's fine.
Right.
Just make it work.
Of course.
Yeah. Isn't that
I
great?
kind of want to go back to, you said that your authors come really prepared to work with you. Like, what kind of preparation do you suggest for an author who wants to work with a designer? Like, what should they come prepared with?
Well, definitely go through the portfolios of other designers and book covers that you like. And actually, my advice how to, before reaching the designer, and how to decide to which designer you want to hire, maybe go through the portfolio and the style you prefer the most. Choose that designer, because it's the biggest chance it's going to get your style and what you actually want. That's first. And second, as I said, just think for main elements of the book. Do you want a scene on a book, which of course it can't be like very rich scene showing too many things, or do you want to show your cover presenting some kind of a symbol, which also adds a mystery, and reader would probably ask, "Ooh, what's this?" It just provokes a little bit imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it. And then after finding a right designer, you think the designer you think it's right for you, through the conversation, everything will set on its seat. Definitely.
You mentioned earlier about mood. How important is mood? Do you think mood, for instance, trumps a symbol, or mood is more important than, another element on the cover?
No, mood is extremely important. After all, it defines the genre of the book, of the cover.
Right. Yes.
It's very, very important. And mood can be achieved through colors, of course, contrast, typeface that you're using. Many elements are defining the mood, which defines the genre, which is the most important thing in design, designing book covers.
Mm-hmm.
So then you really want to find a cover designer that works with your genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't most designers work in multiple genres? Would you say?
I believe that. Yeah, I believe they do. There are a few really, really good designers specialized in, let's say, paranormal, fantasy, mystery, but most of them, they do everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes the job really interesting.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to know going into it, like, what your genre is, what mood you want to evoke, all of that. So maybe that's something you could come prepared with.
Definitely. I have my own preparation before starting a new design. Although, for example, I designed a thriller mystery, let's say a month ago, and I have another cover that I'm designing right now. I will go again through the trends, new covers coming out, everything new that is happening. I go through all of that. Every time I start a new cover, I completely go through all of it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah, and I just want to say, to highlight what you're saying, Daria, about your research and your preparation, one of the things I love about working with you is that I bring you my concept, and I'm pretty darn specific. Okay. This house, the house in the Murder in Skog Hall, well, in all of the books, because it's just his house, I found floor plans for a 1921 Sears Roebuck mail order house. So people would go to the Sears Roebuck catalog, pick their house. The floor plans are in the catalog, miniature ones, and then they would have to take their car or their horse-drawn wagon or whatever to the train depot, because these giant pallets of building materials would be dropped off at the train station, and then they'd take it back to their land and build their house. And so I'm like, okay, Daria, I need this house. And we could not find a picture of this house in stock photos. We were both going through so many websites, and I'm like, it's this house. It must. And finally, I don't know, I might have come across it and sent it to you, and then you got it or whatever, but it was like, there it was after just days and days of searching. And for this one, again, poor Daria, I'm like, I need this house. It's where the murder took place. So stock imagery again was failing us. So I got on Facebook and said, I need a double-barrel shotgun house. Does anybody live in New Orleans with a camera who can take a high-res photo? And my sister-in-law has a friend who's a photographer in New Orleans. So we got hooked up. So oh gosh, he and I and Daria, so David Nance, the photographer, we were emailing and he did some scouting and sent us lots of pictures. And I'm like, okay, I like these houses, Daria. Well, these work in the design. So it's this great collaborative sort of quest to find my houses and my road sign. This is the real road, the Great River Road, scenic road on the Wisconsin side of the Mississippi. So I love how collaborative Daria is, and I don't know if all cover designers are that way, but it's so much fun working together.
Yeah. Finding the house it was unbelievable. It was so much fun. As you said, almost like a quest. We have to find a house.
Well, it's a haunted house story, so it's like the crux of the book. Yeah. Totally.
It's definitely a part of the process that I really like, because you spend all this time alone writing the story, and then the design process for the cover is so collaborative. It's a nice change of pace, and also like you get to see something you've been working on forever by yourself come to life in other people's hands as well. So it's a really fun process.
It is. Yeah, it's really magical, you know. Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts before we look at those covers? If you liked this conversation about cover design with graphic designer Daria Brennan, make sure you come back next week. Daria put together a collection of book covers for us to discuss. It's really a fantastic conversation about the difference between good covers and great covers, because let's face it, we all know a bad cover when we see it, but we don't all know what's going to tip that scale from good to great. And of course, you can see all the covers we're talking about at storyworkspodcast.com in the show notes, or you can watch the show on YouTube. Thank you for listening to the Storyworks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.